Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I am your sensei, your griot, your storyteller, here to tell you a story. And don't believe a word I say. This show is strictly for your entertainment and has no reference to anything in this world that people say, this is reality, man. It's all about my ego. This is nothing about it. Tonight's live chat is about our spiritual connection, right? And the only, you know, we are always talking about our body. Oh, look at me. Look at this great shirt. Oh, look, I lost weight. Oh, I'm cut. I'm working out. Oh, did 7,000. You know, anyway, no, this body is just an avatar. It's just a bag of water, right? And I don't know if you've ever seen the images of the chakras in your body. So you have the crass five chakras, and then you have another six above it. And it's just like senses. We have five senses, right? Sight, sound, taste, smell, feeling, and then above the six and above is like the spiritual senses, right? And they correlate with the chakras that we have. And so there's five in our body, and then above our crown chakra we have another six that kind of go up, and that's that golden thread that goes up to our Akashic record. And the vehicle that takes it through that is our soul. And our soul is nothing more than a server, right? It takes the data from this avatar experience and brings it up through our chakras into our Akashic record, and puts the data in the hard drive of our Akashic record, and then through karma and dharma it brings it back down into our body, and we experience the dynamics of our past lives, of the contract that we made with the great creator to serve love's co-creation. And we are not expected to be perfect when we are experiencing um, this sandbox um, in this bag of water, right? And this mechanism is connected to our superconscious mind. And our superconscious mind is where the great creator, the burning bush, the word God is an irrelevant term. Allah Akbar is an irrelevant, these are terms of respect within the construct of our cultural dynamic, where we came from, our lineage, right? And it's a term of, it's not that it's irrelevant, it's a term of respect for the burning bush, for the great creative force, the great maker, right? And there is no way that in the totality of a great maker that we can understand it, even though we are, that double helix of the DNA. That is us. RNA just has one swirl, right? Our DNA is the double, and all our relations, all of the feathered and skinned and furred, and all of every other conscious creature, and sand is conscious, water is conscious, everything is conscious because it's the connectivity. Now you take one little ant and you put it there, and it just kind of roams around and doesn't do anything. But you put the ant in its colony, and its collective um, is way smarter than us. It designs things, engineers things, it deals with catastrophe with no problem. Because it isn't thinking about its individuality. That I'm exceptional. And that little ant isn't going, I'm exceptional, and I have an ego, and screw everybody else. It's all about me. No, little ant does. It's the we in me, right? So tonight we're going to talk about this, right? And the difficulty, and see, first of all, you have to realize this isn't your only shot at this. And this is a sandbox. This is a learning experience, not the totality of your spirit, you know? And, the books like the Bible, like the Old Testament and the New Testament and the Quran and the Vedas and Buddha's writings and all of the great theologic literature, they're like, the operating manual. It's not, hey, this is what it is. This is kind of, hey, this is, kind of what you should expect, or this is kind of, think about this. You're here to learn, to experience, to understand. It's not about the totality. This isn't totality land, right? And the minute you were born, you were destined to die, right? And so you should, and if you're not ready to die, you're not ready to live. And you need, the past, whatever you did, so I tell you tons of stories about this, that, and the other thing, right? I don't believe a word I say, first off. But second, these stories are myths, right? I mean, yes, I experienced them, but telling them to you as a griot, they're a myth. And what is a myth but a story that gives the listener the opportunity to identify, appreciate, understand, and see as an example, maybe I could try that, right? So that's what all my stories are, right? Trying to give you, the cadre, the opportunity to step up to, doing something interesting with your life instead of just, spending the next 40 years working at Walmart's and, then dying. The minute you finish work, you kind of just walk out the parking lot and you keel over, right? No, because, you've been unconscious because you put yourself in an environment where you're totally unconscious. The whole thing is, what meditation is that you're living in the moment and you're not thinking of anything. No, it's not, we live in this kind of alleged material world, and to accomplish anything in it. Hey, Perp, I love you too. Apex love. And so, you should take your actions serious. You should take the responsibility of what you do and how it affects others, right? But in its totality, it's the moment you're living that's important, not what happened back then. The past is just like the only thing that you should see relevant about past is like a lesson you learned. Oh, well, I screwed up there, or that worked really well. And then you use that as a guidepost, strictly a guidepost. And but you're living in the moment. And if you're not living in the moment, you're wasting your life. You're going to experience life as Shakespeare's character Hamlet did. He was never in the moment. He was always, talking to his dead dad and projecting what his mother was doing and what his uncle was doing and what everybody else. And so he felt anxious about it, and so he had to kill them all, right? And then after he killed them all, and he was the only guy left on the throne, and his buddy was like jumping around like a cheeky monkey. We won. Oh, we're in control. We're the boss. We can do whatever we want. And he looks over at Hamlet. Hamlet, what's wrong? You're always dour, but you're even more dour. You should be happy. We won. We won. And Hamlet said, no. What do you mean, no? He goes, well, what are you thinking about? He goes, tomorrow. Tomorrow? What about tomorrow? Well, then there's tomorrow. What do you mean? Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. And that's all Hamlet could think about was tomorrow, not today, not the moment, not here, right now. And that's what we're here to do, is experience the here and right now in co-creation with love. Meaning, you want to use that word God. Again, those are only, cultural derivations of something that we as a society don't even understand or even spend any time trying to be part of. In the Old Testament, there's Moses. And, what's interesting, the Hebrew nation is always moving someplace into somebody's neighborhood, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, and they're always in their history, his story, it states that they're always oppressed. Well, if you truly read the Torah, you will see all those places where they were enslaved. No, those the Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Mesopotamians, all of those guys did not enslave these people. What it was the Babylonians, the Mesopotamians, the Egyptians, and et al. Realized, that the Hebrews had probably, within the construct of their experience, the oldest history. And they had an experience base and a talent base. And so these people would bring them into their country, and they weren't slaves. They weren't like, cleaning the toilet. They were being, the merchants and the bankers and the scholars. And that's what those societies wanted. Now, they had their own, priests, right? And so the Jews were never allowed to be priests of their religion. I mean, they were allowed to have their own, and the rabbis were doing that. But they wanted them to be the scribes. They wanted them to be the lawyers. They wanted them to be the investment bankers. And that is what God, when he was talking to Moses and said, we have to, I want you to go to Egypt and free our people. And what, the burning bush was talking about, and was not that Moses should go there and, like in DeMille's movie with Charlton Heston, he goes there with his staff and, turns it into snakes. And no, he wasn't like there to, bully the Pharaoh to let his people go. No, the freedom he was there to do was to free the Hebrew nation themselves from their own oppression of their ego. And if you read all of the history of the Hebrew nation, it's all of the torment and terrible things that happen to them come on the behest of their ego. So, and pretty whatever, people, why did God, God sucks and God doesn't exist because all this terrible stuff happens. Well, God doesn't freaking make this stuff happen. We do, all the wars, all the diseases we have come from us, our greed, where we go into an environment where that wasn't our native environment. We go in there, tear it down, like bubonic plague and all of the diseases of the Dark Ages came from, when we, the Europeans, the Roman Empire expanded itself out into other people's lands and went into forests and other areas that the people who lived there didn't go there because they knew they shouldn't, because they knew there were things in there that would get them sick, but not the Romans. Oh, this, we cut all these trees down and we drain all this and we do this. We could grow blah, 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 or we could make cotton, or we could, and they're just thinking about the Benjamins. They're not thinking about the consequence. And every time they did that, they caused, it unearthed something that then exposed people who had no exposure to that, and they got sick, right? And all these COVID infections, and it's just not like, the flu, you name it, anything that's a virus is a COVID virus, and all of those things came out of environments AIDS, SARS, MERS, all of those things came from us going into environments and destroying the habitat, and then unleashing, animals into our habitat that were like, this 19 thing. Oh, it came from bats. Well, the bats don't get sick, And if we were smart, we would look at their immune system and see why they don't get sick. But did we do that? No. All right. And, there's a lot better, like when we had the Spanish flu, which it wasn't, the only reason we call it Spanish flu is that it actually started in the United States in Kansas in a feedlot, the first large industrial feedlot. And, the cows and the pigs were, thousands of them, and they were, roaming around in their own slop. And, they would, kill them right there in the slop, slice them up, and ship them off in a train to Chicago and New York, right? And they were making a lot of money. And so around the time of World War I, when Mr. Woodrow Wilson said, "Oh, we're not going to get involved in this," and France and Germany and Russia and England were duking it out, this industrial food, big, gigantic, millions of animals. And so there were lots of guys working there. And they, their hygiene and everything of the animals was terrible. I mean, go read, what's his name? The guy who wrote The Razor's Edge wrote a story about the slaughterhouses, right? And that book caused the FDA. It was so, it made people who read it just so, horrified. You mean I'm eating that crap? And that's where we got the FDA, right? And so Food and Drug Administration. And now the FDA is owned by corporations, and they are doing the bidding of big pharma and big agriculture, and they're not watching out to protect the general public. And see, that this is a continual storyline. It goes over and over and over, and like it's going, that's the Tower of Babel was a good example of this. And so it just keeps going on and on. And end of times ain't coming anytime soon, kids, because this is an illusion. So it can be manipulated in any which way. And so when Moses was up in the mountains with the sheep, and the burning bush showed up, and the burning bush tells Moses to, go free the Hebrew nation. Moses, smart guy. He was going to be Pharaoh. Moses was Pharaoh's favorite son until he found out he was Jewish, and then Moses had to hit the bricks. And Moses, traveled all the way to the other side of Africa, and went up in the mountains and found this really smart guy who had beautiful daughters, and so this really smart guy liked Moses because Moses was a smart guy, and they could, drink tea and talk about theology and philosophy and things. And he wanted, the smart guy who was the sheep herder. He was getting old. He couldn't, sheep herd anymore. So he had, he said, "Hey, Moses, I got some nice daughters. Why don't you see which one you like and marry it? I'd like you as a son-in-law." So that's what happened. And Moses was up there, and he was happy. He was content. He loved his wife, and, it was, a great experience. And he, he had an amazing family, an amazing father-in-law, an amazing mother-in-law, and his sister-in-law. See, it was a great thing, and he enjoyed going up the mountains and watching after the sheep. And he knew, the great maker was up there because of the lightning and the thunder and all that stuff. And he communed with his creator. And then one day, bang, lightning hits, turns the bush burning. It doesn't incinerate. It just keeps burning and burning and burning. And then the bush talks to Moses, right? And so they're having a conversation. And the bush says, "Hey, I want you to go to Egypt and free our people." And Moses goes, "Smart guy. Okay. So, if I do that, what do I get?" And the burning bush, "I'll answer one deep question honestly." Oh, smart guy. He realizes if he gets the burning bush to tell him his name, he will know what God is. No one knows what God is. They give him all kinds of crazy names. You read the Old Testament, God's called by about 20 different names. Anyway, so, the burning bush says, "Okay, what's the question?" And Moses, "So, what's your name and who are you and what are you doing here?" Right? And which is all, you'd think, "Oh, well, that's 3 questions." No, that's all the same question, just different parts of it. And the burning bush goes, in King James, it says, I am who I am. Well, the only person who says that is Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I am who I am. Boop, boop, boop. And that's the only guy who says, I am who I am. What the burning bush says, I am a work in progress, and you, meaning humanity, is my reflection. And I observe what you're doing, and I move in that direction. And I co-create with love with you guys. And that's why the Old Testament, God is such an asshole, because we were such assholes. So God was watching what we're doing and said, "Oh, they want to be debauching and blah 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 blah. I'll just turn them into salt, because that's what they're screwing so much. All they're doing is sweating, and all they are is salt. So bingo, they're salt. They want to be salt. Bingo, because Burning Bush has no idea really what we're doing. It is just watching what we're doing and takes its lead." From our actions, and we have a free will. That's why we have free will, so we can be in co-creation with love, and in that it is. And why things are so screwed up is that we have embraced the delusion of duality of ego, and that's where we're at. So, Perp, what do you think? I've been talking for 21 minutes and 43 seconds, and it is 5:27, and so I'm going to go use the facilities, and maybe I made some dinner, and it's been sitting on the stove, and so you cook stuff, and then you turn up the heat, and you let it sit, and it's at its, it's warm, it's nice. If I go put it in a bowl, and I made some really nice ginger garlic rice with a hot sauce. And I have a vegetable stew. And I have what's left over from a peach cobbler. So I'm going to scrape them. And it's all peachy, creamy, and burnt. But not like burnt, like ick. Just crispy burnt. And so I'm going to scrape it out of the pan, put that in the bottom of the bowl, and put the vegetable stew on top of that, and then the gingery, garlicky, hot rice on top of that. And then I'm going to mix it up a little bit, and then I'm going to put some sour cream on it, and that's going to be dinner. And I made that today, and so I'll be eating that for the next few days. I'm packing up at the place here because my friends are coming in the next few days, and I'm heading for John's on Sunday. And I've been talking to John, and I think we're going to have a really interesting time. I think we're going to create some very interesting videos, and we're going to take a road trip across America. And we will be able to have a great sociologic, anthropologic exposure through our videos of what's going on in America. So that's what I'm planning to go for. And we're going to head to Texas, where his family is. And I'm going to be there. And I'm going to try to, I have this great skill set of being a negotiator. So, and in the week or so that we're going to be at the school before we hit the road, he wanted to go, come here now, let's go before Christmas. No, I said no. And I said, first off, John, December 21st is the winter solstice. It's the most important of all the solstices because that is the darkest day of the year. I mean, December 22, there's going to be 1.3, minutes of more sun than on the 21st. And on the 24th, it'll be 1.3 more sun. And then we are now heading for spring and summer, right? And no longer is we at death's doors. We're at the point of life. I mean, life is it's all kind of waking up, right? So what December 21st, of the 365 days, this day has been New Year's Day. Now, the Julian calendar changed it all around for business reasons, profit reasons, and made Jesus being born on December 25th, and that was the holiday of the Golden Bull, right? So, meaning finance, and so pretty much, if Jesus even Jesus has always existed, because without Jesus, we would not exist, and therefore, what Jesus is totally unknown by us. He's not the myth of Jesus in the Greco-Roman, Vatican religion is this white-skinned, blue-eyed, long blonde-haired hippie is in North Africa, where everyone else is black. His mother's black, his father's black, but not Jesus. He's white with blue eyes and long hair, and so straight long hair, not curly. He's not wearing an afro, and which everybody else was, and they kind of looked either Africana with a nose, or they kind of looked like the kids from Arab. They kind of look like the folk from Iraq or Afghanistan, right? So, but it didn't look like the blue-eyed, white-skinned, brown-hair guy. They didn't look Anglo-Saxon. So, and these are like things right in front of our face. You think we would kind of get a grip and say, I wonder why that, if everyone in North Africa at the time was black, and what's the story about Jesus? Obviously that isn't the real Jesus. Or even, was there ever a guy named Jesus? Because if you look at cultures for another 100,000 years before that date, there were a lot of guys like Jesus. I mean, John the Baptist was a guy like Jesus. I mean, he was, baptizing, but he was bringing people back from the dead. He was doing miracles. And there were a ton of guys out there doing miracles, right? And they were called magicians. And, even Moses did miracles, right? So, he was out there in the desert for 40 years, and they had nothing to eat, but every day, manna from heaven would come, right? And that's co-creation with God. So I don't like using the word God, because if you take it all the way back to Sumerian and the guys before the Sumerians, the Nephilim, they had a cat called God, and in their language, he was Baal, and if you take the Baal word to Egypt, that go see who Baal is in Egyptian mythology, right? So a pretty badass dude, right? And in the Old Testament, who we call God was a pretty badass dude, and that's why they call him God, because he's Baal. Anyway, all of this stuff, you got to read a lot of books. You got to be able to read Greek, Latin, Hebrew, and then some pretty ancient languages, but no one does, and no one even reads, no one even reads their Bible. They go on and on about it. They quote some crap that they don't even know what they're talking about. Because when I lived in B City, and I went to every church in that city, and I would go to every Bible study, and everyone had no idea. There was only two people who really were theologians had studied, and they were the Methodists, the old guy Methodist guy, and his protege who was going to take his place, who was a beautiful female, who was, my girl. We were best of buddies, let's say that, with benefits, and she loved it because she was the, and I told all the stories about it the last two nights. So go back and those two shows one was 10 hours and the other was about 7. So I told a lot of stories in those last two nights. And tonight I'm going to go on. I'm just going to do this for another few minutes, and then I'm going to, because no one's there, I'm going to bail, and I'm going to see. Right now it's 5:36. I am going to come back at 8 p.m. because the other two nights I started around 10 or 11 and went to 4 in the morning, and then slept for 3 hours. And no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to start about 8 and finish up around 1 or 2, maybe midnight. But I'm going to do it through midnight because tonight. This is New Year's Eve, because at midnight it'll be the 21st, and that will be New Year's Day, right? And you guys have the opportunity to, right now, between the next next 6 hours, 5 hours, 4 hours, whatever, you have the opportunity to meditate, pray, and visualize the life you want for 2022, because 2022, why things have been so weird since 1963, and every 10 years it gets weirder and weirder and weirder and speeds up, speeds up, speeds up. And when you, like me, I got paid very well to study everything and look at the trends of what was going on. And as things went from 1963 to, because that was kind of when I because I experienced Jack's whack, it really kind of woke me up. And so it woke me and my mom up, and then my mom went back to sleep and I stayed awake. And I was already awake. I mean, I remember being born. I remember everything, right? Most people, my sisters, they do not remember anything until they were like 20. I mean, all the stuff we did as kids, and we did a lot of. My parents were kind of fun. Christmas, we made my mom's German, so we made decorations. We strung cranberries and popcorn, and we made all kinds of decorations. And we sat around the dining room table and made stuff, and we had the Advent calendar, and I mean, my mom really made Christmas, and my dad was totally whack for Christmas, right? And my mom knew, she knew to appreciate every moment of the Christmas holiday and not have expectation. My father always had, he was always disappointed, and he always was depressed. And mostly because World War II threw him into the Waring blender of total, unbelievable chaos, murder. He worked for Colonel LeMay and basically perfected genocide on an industrial scale. Everyone thinks that's what the Nazis did. No, but we did it so much better. And then, the Nazis kept seeing what we were doing, and then did it even better. And then at the end of World War II, Germany bombed into the Stone Age, but the Nazis went to Antarctica, the moon, and South America. And then they came into America through Operation Paperclip, and they brought 70,000 Nazis into our military-industrial complex and took it over. And that's why our politics, why right now things are just so whack, because the unseen hand are those guys, right? But today's New Year's Eve. Tonight, when we go into the 21st, because of a lot of astrological things, this is an opportunity that hasn't been around for 160,000 years. And if you put yourself in the correct, and what is correct? What correct is that you are awake to love's co-creation, and that you are living in the moment with love's co-creation, and you are in every day and every way taking the piece of the earth and making it stronger with love's co-creation, and you are doing your best, right? You're not trying to do your best. You are doing your best. Now, you can't be perfect, so just do your best. And if you do your best, you will be doing better than most people, right? But that's what you're expecting. Just do your best in co-creation with love. So We're going to talk about that tonight at around 8 o'clock. Right now, I'm going to bail. And what I want you to do is come back later tonight and let us talk about how you want to visualize 2022 and make it a year to remember for it being the best. And 2020 and 21, they were really nuts because the hidden hand was, they're just hanging on by their fingernails, and they did everything they could to try and scare the crap out of people and force them. I mean, like, look at Australia. They're turning that into a death camp colony, and having concentration camps. And when they first started the lockdown, it's only going to be for 14 days. Well, that was 2 years ago, and they haven't stopped being locked down. And now people who are getting antsy about it, they're putting them into camps. And Australia is so big and the population is so small, they can do that. But it's just a test bed. So, look, we did this in Australia. We're going to do it here in America and over there in Europe and over there. And, so, that is what they are trying to do. But it's not working out, because when they locked down America, they gave the general public a whole year to think about what their life was. And they realized, my life sucks. I don't want to keep. That's why they can't find people to work at McDonald's. But the dynamic is all of those crappy jobs that people work for minimum wage, who don't want to do it now, within, I would say within 5 years, if not 2 years, all those kind of jobs will be done by AI and robots. And then we're going to have, what was the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie when the robots killed everyone? Then we're going to have that, right? But it's not going to happen. Sorry, I mean, it may get weird, but it's not going to happen. And that's the beauty of what's going on with humanity and has been going on. And if you are smart enough to look at the history they allowed you to read, and that's the beauty of YouTube. And that, I'm not the only guy doing this. There's millions of people out there putting out stuff that's really pretty interesting. There's a guy, there's Truly Grace, there's Dark Journalism, there's a ton of other people who are, Jimmy Dore, and there's really some people doing great stuff. And at a certain point, they're just going to take the internet down, and they're going to replace it with Elon Musk internet. And that's why he's putting up 50,000 little robot satellites up in space. So there'll be one over everybody. They won't need towers. They won't need any of that. Our whole planet will be covered by a net, and it'll have the same kind of energy. So it'll have more power to, fuck with your head than anything else. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And again, if you want to put in, I could really use some cash in the old PayPal. And PayPal is screwing around. I went to see if anyone put anything in my PayPal, and I can't even see. And it said, for security reasons, and they showed like this box of 9 pictures. Which one has a tractor? And it was like a blurry picture, and the box was this big, and I couldn't make it bigger. And I had to go get a magnifying glass and without me picking the right boxes, it wouldn't open my account. This is the shit they're doing, right? Anyway, so anyone wants to talk to me personally, go to the dudeawake42 at Gmail. And if you are want to put anything to PayPal, put it in PayPal. And, when they ask what's the email address, it's the dudeawake42 at Gmail. So I'd love to hear from you. And also, I'd love it if you made some comments in the comment section. And because last night we had a great chat. We had a lot of people, and people were opening up their hearts, and it was really beautiful. And the energy was really amazing. And I got lots of comments. Actually, there were people in the town I was in, who I was in this restaurant, and this person who I had no idea who they were, they looked at me and said, do you have are you Al Bob? And I'm like, really? in the middle of nowhere, you're asking, I say, yeah, I've been watching your channel. It's great. And the last few nights, I mean, you did one I watched it for 10 hours. I never watched anything for 10 hours. And the comments on your chats were, those people, I could feel them. And that's the kind of chat I have. And they're not trying to be really smart, blah, blah, blah. And they're not trying to, oh, wow, I love your haircut. Oh, those shoes are really cool. Oh, you've been working out. No, they actually share their feelings. Tonight at 8 o'clock, I want to see you all there sharing your feelings. Okay? So I love you all, and I'll speak to you later. I'm going to go use the facilities and then have Din Din and read a little bit and prepare myself for tonight's show, okay? Okie dokie.